So let's talk about it now with child psychologist Anne-Marie Saunders and Dr. David Peterson from the Warwick Business School. You're also a psychologist, is that right?
Correct.
Yes.
And you're both parents.
And
Yeah.
you're both, well, I was going to ask you that first of all. You can have a sort of clinical approach to this or a personal one. It ends up being a very personal decision. You have 3 children?
3 boys, yes.
Under the age of 6?
Yes.
So you're right in there.
I am.
So what's your policy?
Our policy is, in any situation, we want to teach our children to consider the effects of their behavior on other children. And so if we can do anything that will help children and help other children and not impact them negatively, then that's what we would like to do.
Does that mean you're going to invite everyone in the class?
No, it doesn't necessarily mean that. I don't think it's an either-or situation. If there are birthday invitations going out, then we try to do it to either just a few children and do it discreetly. If we can do it outside of school, then we'll try to do that.
Okay, so keep it outside of term time. So that
that's one
avoids
option.
the issue. Okay.
Yeah, that's one option.
So what the headmaster in this case suggests is that if you're sending out invitations at school, so I guess it's a child handing out invitations, in that school they need to be to all the children. Would you agree with that?
Well, I think what he's really getting at is that the school policy is about social inclusion, and bringing invitations into school can be potentially very hurtful for some children when they're not invited. So he's not saying you have to invite all children to your parties. What he's actually encouraging parents to do is to not bring the invitations into school. So, you know, it's a real issue for parents. I mean, and children's parties are a minefield. Who do you invite, who do you not invite? I think we've all been through that. But there are some children who never get invited to parties. And that, in my work, I work with a lot of parents and children who say they never get invited to play with other children. And, you know, it's about children's resilience to cope when their classmate is getting invitations and they see social exclusion, they're not included.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because a lot of people will sympathise with that point of view. A few teachers get in touch saying their school policy is precisely that, which is if it's during term time, you know, don't bring the parties into the school area because that causes the problem. But if your child, for example, is intimidated, I'm not necessarily talking about physically, but there are children who sometimes almost stop children being themselves, aren't they? If they're around them, they're a dominating personality. If your child didn't want that child at their birthday party because they couldn't be themselves, I mean, why would you invite that child? Because you know for sure that your child will be thinking all the time, I can't do what I want to do because I'll be thinking, what are they thinking of me? Exactly. These are complicated emotional things, aren't they?
But I think, I mean, a child does have a right to choose who they go to their party, but we're asking people to be mindful. If you've got a small class and you invite the majority of the class, but you leave some children out, those children are going to be very hurt. So it's about finding alternative ways of celebrating birthdays, like having a party in school. Or if there is a more difficult child, as a child who has social, emotional, behavioural difficulties, ask the parent to come with them, but try to include them.
We've had so many responses. So, David, just reply to these ones if you would. Somebody says on Twitter, my son was excluded from a party where the whole class went last week because of a nasty mother, very unfair. Another person says, totally unreasonable. We had a class size of 10 and my autistic child was the only one not invited. Now, that's cruel. And the thing is, it's not just really, I mean, I suppose, you know, the argument goes beyond school because, you know, even if those invitations weren't handed out at school, the pain those children feel is real for them, isn't it?
It is, and that's one of the issues that I have with making a blanket policy. Is that you're not really solving the problem. You're helping it in some cases, and you know, in cases like this where you have targeting or where you're targeting specific children, that's an issue. Outside of that, my concern as an organizational psychologist is we need to give children the skills that they need to navigate complex social situations in organizations.
So to be robust, if that's happening to you, what you have to cope?
But it's not just throwing the child in the water and asking them to swim, right? It's giving them the skills that they need to navigate those kinds of situations on both sides. So if your child is the one doing the inviting, helping them understand, well, if you invite at school, maybe that might have some negative implications for other students.
You won't be surprised to hear we've had a huge reaction, and I sense as well there are probably quite a lot of parents getting in touch who were in that position themselves once as children, so it sort of sits with you, doesn't it? Thank you. We're going to talk about it later on as well.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for your comments as well. Do feel free to send some more in and we shall look at them a little bit later.